Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I am here with our returning friend. You all know him as Luanne's cabaret director, but today he is here as our Fire Island co-pilot expert. I want to do this deep dive on Cherry Grove and the Pines for me. I mean, I don't know who this is for.
It's for me too.
And for you. But I feel like there's a little bit of mythology around Fire Island, even among I know tons of gay people, New Yorkers who have never been to Fire Island. And I know
they think it's too expensive. You have to be white and beautiful and affluent, and they're right. No, I'm just kidding. I think people do think though, it's they'll go on a vacation to Hawaii or Thailand, but they're I could never get to the Pines. It's
we're gonna break down the rivalry, or at least the former rivalry between Cherry Grove and the Pines, the sort of bullet point staples of the meat rack, the invasion, the Pines party, which you just told me you went to.
I'm not a Pines Party virgin anymore.
And the reason you're so perfect for this, and you were literally my only choice. It was either if you had said no to this, I just wasn't going to do it, is because I know that you are part of a Fire Island share house and have been for how long?
Well, this is my third summer actually having a share. I was renting weeks here and there prior to that. And prior to that, I was mooching, my friends would have shares and they'd be my housemates are leaving Tuesday morning. You can come for a couple of nights. And, I always found my Fire Island stays, I'd be invited for 2 nights and I'd find a way to extend my run. I've also done my show Patty Issues there a couple of times over the years where I was given housing. And my first trip to Fire Island was actually in 2005. And I was directing my friend Lance Horn. He's a brilliant songwriter. I was directing his first time doing a solo concert at Joe's Pub, performing his own stuff. And he, through some social connection, had gotten a tryout gig of his show at the Blue Whale. It was Memorial Day weekend, 2005. And I'd been obsessed about Fire Island since college when I read all those great gay fiction novels from the 1970s.
My first question for you was, when did you first even hear about Fire Island?
Well, I first heard about it before that because growing up, my mom's brother, who's gay, still lived here. And my gay uncle, who is a baby boomer and was a Fire Island person. And I would hear him talk about it. And I would also hear my grandparents talk about Fire Island because they had a lot of close friends who had houses other communities
in the
Fire
straight
Island.
area.
Yeah. And so they would talk about how they would go to dinner there and spend the weekend, and there were no cars. And, it just was something that as a kid, it just sticks in your mind. The name even alone sticks in your mind.
Evocative.
But then in college, I was reading all these books by Edmund White and Felice Picano, and of course, famously Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran, and many more that, even if Fire Island was just incidental, I felt like I treasured each mention of. And some of them, really the Felice Picano books, I would say, Like People in History have you ever read that book?
No.
It's so incredible. Edmund White called Felice Picano's Like People in History the big gay Gone with the Wind we've all been waiting for. It's epic. It takes place over several decades from the 50s to, I guess, the 90s when it was written. And there's a lot of stuff in the 70s and 80s set on Fire Island. Really, someone should adapt that into a film. It's so cinematic. These scenes on these big parties, and I could cry thinking about that book. So that really painted this picture that was, I reread those books, again and again, and it really painted a picture for me that I was just sort of drooling over. And then I had gotten the idea from my uncle that Fire Island had sort of faded from prominence due to AIDS, And then when I was coming out and, coming into my own in San Francisco in the 90s in college and everything, you didn't really hear that much about Fire Island. As a matter of fact, if you heard anything, it was about P-Town. P-Town had, I read books from the 90s, like Bill Mann's The Men from the Boys and stuff that took place there. So that actually, and I remember reading in interviews that Tony Kushner and John Waters had places there, so that was sort of starting to be interesting to me. And then when I moved to New York, I was working in theater. I was so broke. Fire Island, I wasn't even going to Coney Island,
Right.
So, But anyway, Lance got this gig in 2005, so they had given him a suite, so they called it, at the Botel. Although
Lord.
that year it was under new management, it was called Hotel CL, which was still the same rat trap with new throw pillows. And we both got scabies that weekend.
Amazing.
But we extended the stay on the front end. We got a night at the Grove Hotel at the Ice Palace. So our first night was there. I remember we went out the first night. We went out in the Pines because Lance was friends with DJ Lena, who was at the beginning of her run of her reign. And he made out with her. We were up in the DJ booth at the old pavilion, and he made out with her.
Before it burned down.
Yeah, I think it's even before the one that burned down was built.
Yeah, we're going to talk about how this place has burned down many times.
Right. It's sort of the gay mafia, but not in the like velvet, culture way. But anyway, so then I remember us walking back through the meat rack to get to our room at the Grove Hotel. And then we were at the Botel, and we wound up staying an extra
So the
few
Botel,
nights.
are you literally sleeping on a boat?
No. Oh, do you not know this? The Botel is what they call the hotel at the Blue Whale. It's the same old
like
hotel that's
Share
been
Girl.
forever.
Isn't it now?
Now it's called, I think, the Botel again. It's gone through
really?
many names. The Botel is the historic name, and everyone still calls it that. And I think it's called that. It's mostly been called that. But there was a couple of years where it was called Share Girl.
Yeah.
There was a couple, maybe only 1 year when we were there in 2005, where it was called Hotel CL.
It's a total shithole.
It's a shithole. I've stayed there several other times too. I mean, it smells like blue cheese. The only hotel in the New York area where rooms are $600 a night and you share a bathroom. We had a suite, a huge suite, like twice the size of this apartment, but we shared a bathroom with the suite next door. I don't know. But I mean, it was a crazy time. We were so young. I remember seeing all the hot guys that worked as the bartenders and waiters at the Blue Whale restaurant and at the bar for tea and everything. And they were all hanging out with us because we'd be sound checking and all that in the room. We were flirting with them. They were giving us free drinks, and I remember thinking they seemed like they were all at like gay summer camp. Like they were. I was thinking,
because they put
friendships they'll make this summer
because they put them up for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so get
in bunk
this.
Beds,
Oh, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so literally on this exact note, this is such a local anecdote.
Yeah.
So I was on Fire Island maybe like a month ago, and I get a DM saying, "Oh my God, I thought that was you." A listener of this very podcast is working full time at the Italian restaurant and as a waiter.
What's the bistro?
The bistro,
Heinz
as
Bistro.
a Michael, he's working full time as a bartender, waiter there, and then on the weekends he does brunch at the Blue Whale.
Well, now it's all the same owners. The Pavilion, the Blue Whale, the bistro, Sip and Twirl. The Pines is like, it's a monopoly.
I want to explain what each of these different explain what Sip and Twirl is, explain what the Pavilion is, and I saw Sandra Bernhard at the Pavilion, but we'll get it. I want to get into what are the greatest performances you've seen.
Yeah.
But I guess to start, we should sort of explain that I think there is this misconception that New York City, the West Village, Stonewall. Yes, it is technically the start of the gay rights movement. But Fire Island, Cherry Grove specifically, was the safe haven for gay people since the 40s.
Yeah, no, the Pines was actually
closeted.
And before that, I think it was even just straight. Mm-hmm. And Cherry Grove was really the historic gay place, where they had little bungalows. If anything, the Pines was like Broadway straight town. Bob Fosse had a house, that was that kind of thing before it became, Tommy Tune and Calvin Klein and all the fabulous 1970s gays. But Cherry Grove, you really feel that history.
It's I kind of liken it to Cherry in the day, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, actually until 75, 76, until the very first invasion. And we'll explain what that is. Cherry Grove was kind of like the groovy West Village, and the Pines was really like the stuffy Upper East Side.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I do remember the other thing that made an impression on me about Fire Island when I was still in college was, I don't know if you've ever seen the 1996 movie Stonewall.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with that movie.
Yeah.
With Guillermo Diaz and Fred Weller, and he takes him to Fire Island after he gets in a fight with La Miranda. And they go, and it's really shot on Fire Island. You see the old it's before the pavilion. It's the Sandpiper, I think it still was. And on the dance floor, they dance like side to side, and you can only dance facing with a woman.
Yes.
There's sort of like token women there, and when they're on the beach in their Speedos, when the cops walk by, they have to cover up. And I remember, you see that Maddie Dean is kind of having this moment of like, oh wow, this place is pretty closeted. It's not the free play. And of course it became that in the 70s and to this day in a way. But you still feel the Pines has a stuffiness about it that it's like I guess maybe the Pines is more like Hell's Kitchen or something in terms of gay equivalents nowadays, and Cherry Grove would be like the West Village or even like Bushwick. Maybe it's not quite as like young and counterculture in the way that Bushwick, maybe the West Village is. It's very the cubby hole and the duplex kind of feeling.
In fact, Cherry's, the main bar.
Love Cherry's. I wore my Cherry's t-shirt to bed last night, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, we should say you were wearing a Fire Island Pines t-shirt for this recording.
The funny thing is I always buy all these t-shirts there because I'm so obsessed with it. And then I'm like, I can't wear these here. So then I bring them back to the city, and then it's like winter. And so I don't wear them. So I was like, I'm wearing it today.
So funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really believe that the owner of Cherry's is the same owner of the cubbyhole.
Oh, wow. Is that woman Jacqueline or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
she's
funny.
always around.
Yeah.
She's always around.
I love it.
But to your point about in that movie where they have to be dancing with, basically furthering the point how it was this safe haven before New York City was for gay people. I think because, we've passed marriage equality and we've come so far legally, people forget that it was illegal to hold hands with somebody of the same sex. Like, you could literally get arrested.
Yeah.
And Fire Island, particularly Cherry Grove, was the only place people had where they could just be free.
Yeah.
And they really kind of like let their freak flags fly, like starting like, drag shows that would last for years. Did you ever see any of the iconic drag performers?
Of the Fire Island ones, not really. Although, actually, I mentioned to you in text, I just accepted a guest starring role there's the Fire Island Pines Arts Project does their annual big musical. It's like community theater on Fire Island Labor Day weekend. So there's a core cast of 6 that are like maybe the kind of regular guys that do the Fire Island Pines Art Project musicals every summer, but they have these extra guest stars like Julie James from Sirius Radio's doing it, and Seth Sykes, me, a couple other people, and one of the other people is Rose Levine, who is one of the Cherry Grove long-running, like legendary, old school drag queens.
I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
So I went out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Specifically because Rose Levine was performing like the opening night of the Cherry Grove Arts House Theater.
Yes.
I went specifically to see that.
Oh my God.
And I was this guy Bob Levine goes by Rose, like his house is called Roseland in Cherry Grove,
Hilarious.
like iconic.
Oh, that's another iconic thing about Cherry Grove. Most of the houses in the Grove have names, and they're great, show busy, just like
there's the mamas and the papas. There's tons.
Yeah, my friends just bought a house there, and they named it the Ethel Merman, and all the like artwork and everything is Ethel Merman or Merman. But what was the one I was laughing at? There's like, Mama Rose's Conditional Love is one of the houses.
Yeah, anybody who wants to like get their eyes on this Rose Levine, watch, like, strong recommendation to watch the documentary Cherry Grove Stories. Yeah. You can watch it for free on Amazon, and that really like sets the scene and tells you everything.
I mean, there's all, for people like me that are just obsessively wanting to gobble up every representation of Fire Island there is, there's another documentary, When Ocean Meets Sky. And then there's that reality series from a few years ago.
Of course.
Fire Island.
On Logo.
Yeah. That I
produced by Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and the movie, the HBO film Normal Heart. The first whole sequence is a party on Fire Island, filmed on Fire Island, and where Jonathan Groff is so memorable in that section before his character, spoiler alert, dies. And It's I mean, there's a lot. There's not enough. And Bowen Yang and
Joel Kim
and Joel
Booster.
Kim Booster are making this comedy this fall that will be set there, which I cannot wait for.
That is going to be great. I think that will be the first like modern day great
I
representation.
hope so. I mean, they have a lot, a big platform now. I mean, of course, Bowen is a writer and a regular on SNL.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope that, and they're the right guys to do it because they're so smart and so funny and just so cool and hip. And, they're the Fire Island foot forward that we would like to see. There is also this horror movie called Last Ferry.
Oh, yeah, really? Yeah, yes, I've seen this on Netflix.
I watched it. I mean, and it's enjoyable.
Is it funny?
No, it's not funny.
Oh.
Well, you might laugh at it, but no. I mean, it's kind of good.
Was it filmed?
Yeah, it's filmed there, which is alone just reason to watch it. It's beautiful, But it's good. I mean, it's not a horror movie. It's more like a psychological thriller. But it's enjoyable and sexy.
So somebody gets killed.
No spoilers.
Fun fact about let's maybe set the scene of like how you get there, because you can get there many different ways. How do you get there?
Well, I got spoiled. This is the thing. A couple years ago, I had my share there in 2019, and I was on a lot of gigs on tour with Countess Luann, where I'd have the house for a week, but I'd have to miss the first couple of days or miss the first weekend. And so I'd be landing at JFK and my whole house full of sharemates would already be there. And I wouldn't want to fucking miss a minute. And I was making good money. I was on the road working. So I would land at JFK and I would get an Uber to the Sayville ferry station.
Oh, okay.
And I got really spoiled. And then last summer, because otherwise in the past I would take Long Island Railroad to Sayville, and then you get on this like shuttle bus from the Sayville train stop, the ferry. I love the ferry ride so much. I mean, I take the ferry from Boston to P-Town also, but that
is a journey.
That's a journey. Even the fast ferry there is 90 minutes, and I like it. I love boat rides, but that one is different. But this is, it's a 20-minute, 25-minute ferry ride, and it's just gorgeous. And I really live for it. I have my special playlist for it. But I got so spoiled.
Wait, go back. What's on the special playlist?
Well, it's a lot of the songs that were on the soundtrack of that great movie Stonewall with all those girl group songs from the 60s. But also it's a lot of like Bette Midler, Diana Ross, Ella Fitzgerald. Like I love it's not based on Fire Island, but it always makes me think of Fire Island as the great old Cole Porter song Begin the Begin. Mm-hmm. That lyric, down by the shore, an orchestra's playing. That just like... Oh, that just gives me goosebumps. And so I listen to that. I mean, disco is a big part of what I'm so retro. It's like I'm trying to be there in the 70s. Even
Same.
Though it's now.
Same.
But I think that's pervasive there in a way that's certainly more of the so than it would be anywhere else. It's
the whole place is a throwback. I mean, there's nowhere to eat. Like, we can get into this. Like, there are literally no food options.
Yeah, for people that have been to like P-Town or Key West or Palm Springs that think this is like an equivalent of that, in certain ways it is very much not. And that's part of what I love about it, too. It's like, I go to P-Town. I make sure I get to P-Town at least once every summer. And I like to go. I like to stay in a hotel. I like to eat every meal out. I like to see 2 shows a night. At least one of them better be Dina Martina. Like, I have P-Town to me is like a vacation. But Fire Island...
I'm literally leaving tomorrow because it's my birthday weekend, and I'm...
I wish we could be in P-Town together sometime.
I know. Aren't you performing in P-Town?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to push it. I'm doing 2 shows in P-Town the last week in August. I have August 24th. We're doing a special live version of my podcast, Ben Rimalower's Broken Records. My co-host Daniel Nolan and I will be performing that at the Art House. And then on August 25th, I have a show that I'm directing for John Hill from Radio Andy, but I'm in that one too, actually, as like all the bit parts.
Ooh, I may need
also
to
at
make
the Art House.
Another trip.
Oh my God, it'll be so fun.
Are you doing that in the city too?
The John Hill one?
Yeah.
I'm sure we will. This is the very first.
What's it called?
It's called...
Octobottom Part 2.
Hilarious. I love you. This one is called Dead on Arrival. And I think you'll really like it. It's based on this true story that happened to John that is so fucking funny and sketchy and crazy. And I'm so excited for it.
Oh, I really want to do that.
I mean, I think it makes sense that you would like John because you're a Sandra Bernhard fan.
I love John Hill.
He's really so in that vein.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to like the P-Town Fire Island comparison.
Sure. Well,
yeah,
so I'm happy on Fire Island because I've embraced it for what it is, and what I do there is very different. I rent a share house where I have a group of close friends that I put it together after staying in other people's shares where they were random guys they met online or at the share-a-thon or whatever.
Explain what a share. I mean, so, I guess you can think of it as like summer house.
Yeah, I mean, those are very similar to like houses in the Hamptons that people, they're these bigger houses. Maybe they're 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, where a bunch of friends get the house together. And the way Fire Island tends to work is this share schedule where you could get a quarter share or a half share, or you could rent a house for a whole summer. But you and your share group have that. If it's a quarter share, you usually have 5 weeks that are spread out through the summer, kind of like 1 week every month. Half share would be twice that. And you go and, you're splitting the cost of the house, splitting up the bedrooms based on however many of you there are, and you basically are buying groceries either at the fabulous, adorable little grocery store in the Pines Pantry, or, now you can get them delivered through different services that then have to be coordinated with the ferry or the freight boating, and you're basically cooking in the house, all your food. And that's what I love to cook. I love hosting dinner parties in my apartment in the city anyway. I've got to have you over for one, actually.
Oh, I would love that.
But to me, that's what it is in the Pines. I'm just like with people that I love, that I chose, that I want to spend this time with. And we tend to do our own thing during the day. But, we sit down as sort of like family style, have a big dinner, and I love to be in charge of the cooking, every night. And I really, all I want to do, because I grew up in LA in the sunshine, and then I moved here when I was 22, and I love New York, and I wouldn't want to live in LA, even though I have come to love LA too, from distance made my heart grow fonder. But I've learned that I really became a California boy, and that I need sunshine, and I feel such a seasonal depression in the winter months, and then when the sun comes out in the spring, I'm like, oh my God, like my heart like soars when I walk outside. I think that every summer though, I am like thirsty to fill that deficit of sunshine that I'm desperate for, that I missed all year. And so I'm just like, I lay out on the beach all day long. I can't get enough of it. Also, the ocean is like, that's my God. I mean, the closest, when 12-step recovery, when I try to think of any kind of image for my higher power, the first thing that comes to my mind is the ocean. When I can smell the ocean, when I can see the ocean, when I can hear the ocean, and when I can feel myself in the ocean, that is when I feel most grounded and at peace. And that's another thing I love so much about Fire Island, is because is it a barrier island?
It's a barrier island.
It's so narrow.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't understand that, like,
so a barrier island, it's basically this skinny strip of land.
It's almost as long as Long Island itself, the whole Fire Island, right?
Really?
Maybe it's 60% as long, but people think because you think of Fire Island, it is so much smaller than Long Island, you think that it's just a little circle, but because it's a long, skinny thing that rides along a lot of the length of Long Island, but then to actually walk across the width of Fire Island, it takes 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. It's like, but there's only like 6 houses wide from the beach to the bay. And because you're always within earshot of the waves on the beach or the water lapping against the docks on the bay.
Magical.
It's magic.
The
and then
sunset,
no cars.
The lack of car. Yes, there's no motorized vehicles are allowed. Yeah. So everything is boardwalks. It's you're walking, and I love that
so much.
That I don't have to deal with a car.
And I always think of boardwalks as being like selling like cotton candy and like games and rides.
No, these are the most beautiful.
It's just a sidewalk made of wood, Beautiful wood, just everywhere, and it's so.
I do find that the boardwalks are better maintained in the Pines than in Cherry Grove.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons to prefer the Pines. The lots are bigger, the houses are fancier and more austere. Some of them have big gates and are blocked off, and they almost all have pools. There's a little more sense of like self-containment, and it's a little more sense of homeowners that are, having professional landscaping, and everything is sort of maintained. The homeowners association in the Fire Island Pines has more rigid rules, and you feel a little bit like you're in this like sort of beautifully manicured community, and the Grove feels a lot more like you're in this like bohemian like little village.
Beach bungalows, they're they're cottages. They're cute, they're smaller, but if you can get a better deal, like it is an expensive endeavor. Although I can recommend the Madison guest house on Fire Island. You can
in the Pines.
In the Pines you can get. That's usually where I stay.
Yeah.
if I can't find a decent Airbnb. But if you're looking to do it a little bit cheaper, I would recommend looking for Airbnbs in Cherry Grove.
Also, there's a Facebook group called Boys of Fire Island. I mean, first of all, everyone should. It's worth it just to see the crazy drama. People get into huge fights about issues and non-issues, and also just the thirst traps because people post like, "Hey, looking for a room this weekend," and it's like
it's
a picture
shirtless
of
photo.
them. Oh, they'll be in a G-string, a jockstrap, just like with their 8-pack. I mean, it is. Survival of literally the fittest. It's so much fun.
What is the biggest fight you have witnessed on Fire Island?
Oh, I don't know. I did go to the underwear party, Daniel Nardicio's legendary underwear party. And
explain what the underwear party is.
Okay, so the underwear party is this Daniel Nardicio, New York nightlife impresario. Daniel Nardicio has been for many years hosting the D-World underwear party, which takes place at the Ice Palace, which is the legendary nightclub and bar in Cherry Grove connected to the Grove Hotel, which is really a motel, but recently rebuilt after the last fire, though. So it's actually the most modern, clean hotel-style place to rent, by the way, in the gay communities on Fire Island. Anyway, at the Ice Palace nightclub, the legendary Ice Palace nightclub, unchanged since the 1960s, at least the 70s, Daniel Nardicio hosts every Friday night during the summer season D-World Underwear Party, which is a great big dance party, and it's sprawling across the grounds of the Ice Palace, which is a big plus for it because there's the very crowded, very hot dance floor. The Ice Palace, because it's this old structure, it just has, pretty low ceilings, especially for a modern idea of a nightclub. Of course, much different than the Pavilion in the Pines, which is new and high ceilings and has much fancier lighting and sound equipment and all that. But there's something very quaint and retro and fabulous about the Ice Palace, but it's this, the dance floor is packed in this kind of hot, claustrophobic way.
But does it go outside to the deck?
Yes, this is what makes it a party that I can go to. The whole deck outside overlooking the pool is also, and there's another bar, several other bars out there too, and it's summertime, so people can be comfortable hanging out there in their underwear. And I love to be out on that deck at night. It's so fun. And then there's also a legendary back room, which is talk about retro 70s, where people have all kinds of crazy sex stuff going on at the underwear party. That's not my scene. But the underwear party is something I was very unsure about when it first became really popular because I don't have the kind of beach body that is, what do you say, de rigueur in the Fire Island Pines. And by the way, a lot of the Pines boys go over every week to the underwear party. And even in the Grove, I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable, being in my underwear. I don't feel proud of my chest. I don't have any abs, so it's I don't really work out.
Is there a clothes check at the door?
Yes,
or are you riding?
Exactly. You get there, you pay the cover, and there's a clothes check. And by the way, I think it's actually optional. You do once in a while see people in clothes, and certainly you see people in different interpretations. I mean, you could be in a muumuu or a robe and bra and
I know women who go to the underwear party.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have to say the vibe there is just really cool, and I think by the time I get to that point, if I'm on the beach in a bathing suit, I mean, I don't wear a Speedo, but is it really that different? Also, it's dark out, and I have to say, I just sort of go with it, and I think it's actually helped me to feel more comfortable in my body being there. One thing that helped me once was a bunch of my friends were going who were very much not those kind of body types. They were mine, or actually most of them were, I hate to say it, in worse shape than I am, and they love it. And
you look gorgeous.
Thank you. I love you. But, they're bears is what they are, which is not what you see a lot of in the Pines. You see a little more in Cherry Grove. But they were bears, and they think that, all bodies are sexy and body hair is sexy and all that. And it really gave me confidence because I was with them and they were my friends and I felt comfortable with them. And so since then, I've had a better idea about it. But the other thing is I'm sober. I don't really go out to bars anyway. Not that it's necessarily tempting for me to be in a bar. Yeah, I don't know. It's if I'm up late at night, I don't necessarily need to be in a place with loud music and just a bunch of strangers getting drunk. So I tend to not go to the underwear party, but I did go this week because my friend was feeling kind of down and wasn't sure. We weren't sure yet if we wound up getting invited to the Pines party, which was Saturday night. We can come back to what that is.
We'll come back to, yeah.
But we weren't sure at that point if we were actually going to have tickets. And my friend was feeling like maybe he like rearranged his like work schedule and life schedule to stay these extra couple of nights. And it wasn't worth it. We weren't even going to go to the Pines party that everybody there was freaking out about. And so I was like, well, what if we go and we make tonight our big night and we go to the underwear party and we just have a, you know, because he kept saying he wanted to have like hot girl summer. And so we got with my two friends and I got all excited about going to the underwear party that night. And we had the fucking best night. I had so much fun.
What kind of music are they playing?
Pumped. You know, I tend to tune out music that I don't even notice. Like definitely once in a while somebody will be like, oh, this Lady Gaga, oh, Beyonce. And I'll be like, oh, I love this song. I know this song. But most of the time I'm just hearing like you know, and the music's not nearly as loud outside, which is where I hang out anyway. But it was just really fun. Like we were just like talking to all these people. Oh, this is why I brought it up, because I wound up like making out with this guy like that I just randomly met. And I mean, I never do that. I'm like old. I stay home, you know, but this like hot guy I thought was like talking to us, and like it seemed like he was more into me than my friends, even though I think they're way cuter. But then he and I just like kept talking and we wound up making out. But he had told me this crazy story. This sounds really sketchy. He didn't seem like this. But he had gotten to like an altercation when he arrived at the underwear party that night. And he told me this whole story about how he had basically like cut the line to get in. And this guy like sort of like pushed him, and then he like pushed the guy back, and like they got in each other's faces, and like someone had to break it up. First of all, I was shocked that he was still allowed in.
The meat rack.
The meat rack.
Okay.
Speaking of the back room.
So the history of the meat rack, well, essentially it is the path through the forest that connects the Pines and Cherry Grove.
Right, because Fire Island is this long island with lots of communities. I mean, the ones that are the closer end of the island to New York City is like, is that Ocean Beach? I guess
there's Ocean Beach.
That's near Long Beach. Like you can actually drive on a bridge into that part of Fire Island that's closest to the city. Then the cars are not allowed much further than that. But then there's all those little beach communities.
Fair Harbor. Tina Fey has a house in Fair Harbor.
Yeah,
she's had it for like 20 years.
Some of them are supposed to be, you know, really, really gorgeous. Some of them are a little more like egalitarian. There's even a public beach on that one end. But just these little beach communities side by side. And sometimes because parts of Fire Island are part of a national park, Fire Island National Seashore. So sometimes there's that sort of parkland in between the communities. And that is the case, although it's a smallish patch, between the two gay communities, Fire Island Pines and Cherry Grove.
And this patch of forest has been nicknamed the Meat Rack because...
Or the Judy Garland Memorial Forest. I always say there should be a sign that says, I'd turn back if I was you.
Oh, my God. We'll explain why it's called that. But so this has been dating back to the 60s?
Yeah.
The 50s and the 60s. This is where, because the Pines was so closeted, it's where the guys from the Pines would sort of sneak over to Cherry Grove, and they would sort of meet toward the entrance of Cherry Grove, and that's where they would hook up.
I mean, it's the equivalent of like the other public places that a lot of gay men had sex in those days, like the Brambles in Central Park, or the piers down by Christopher Street, or any public toilet anywhere.
Oh my God. But back in the day, the police, the Long Island, the Sayville Police Department used to patrol. They would occasionally go out specifically looking to punish these people, and they would arrest them. The next morning, their names would be in the paper, and their careers would be over,
or their marriages, their lives.
I didn't even think about marriages, but like this kind of just shows you how far we've come and like what it was like. But the meat rack still persists.
It still persists. Although it's really, there's very little action in there because of course everybody's on Grindr nowadays, so they don't need to go find strangers frolicking in the trees.
But here's the thing. So when I was there to see Rose Levine a few weeks ago, I was with a couple of friends, one of whom is part of a share, and this dude's a partier. And we would just wait. We would wake up in our Airbnb. He would be posting like a live Instagram story that was uploaded like 5 minutes ago of just like the beach, the sunrise. He was up all night.
Yeah.
Like he didn't go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then
I wonder what he was on.
What are my options?
Coke, G, ecstasy. I've heard guys taking mushrooms, acid.
Mushrooms.
Yeah.
Mushrooms and Molly, I believe. G is a new thing.
Yeah, we didn't Special K, that's the other thing that they're doing again. We used to have that in the 90s. But yeah, G we didn't have in my day.
What is G?
It's like gamma something. It's a party drug that one thing about G, it's gotten kind of a bad rap, is because people can have, I don't even know if it's called an overdose, because it isn't necessarily related to quantity, that people can just like kind of drop dead from G out of nowhere. It's rare. It's rare-ish, but it's certainly much more common than on other drugs. There have been enough deaths on GHB that apparently it's the reason Splash Bar New York was called SBNY instead of Splash. It was like,
wow.
They had to change their corporation or whatever, ownership maybe. And it's very much a party drug. People really like having sex on G. I've never taken it. It's a thing. I think when people talk about having the sort of gay, dark underworld of like sex and drugs, it tends to be crystal meth and or G.
This is spawning two questions. I just want to say them quickly so that I don't forget the other one. So yes, you are sober. So I have often wondered, what is your nighttime social life? How often do you go out? I know you're describing that like you cook, you're sort of like the house mother.
I am the house mother, yeah.
But how do you react to all of this extreme partying that is going on around you?
I've been lucky in a similar way to how my experience has been in sobriety, being around people that are drinking, is in that I was never a follower in my intake. I was with my family at my brother's graduation from Harvard, and I ran out across the street to a bar, sat by myself for 20 minutes or 10 minutes, chugging Sauvignon Blancs, and then ran back into the graduation saying, I had to go to the bathroom. I would always do the socially inappropriate thing because I needed my fix, whether it was cigarettes, alcohol, or drugs. And, being out with friends and everybody going home to get ready for work, and me being like, nah, I gotta find drugs. I gotta do coke tonight. I want to roll. Who has got Molly? I gotta find Molly. Texting people, waking them up, being like, can you have a dealer for Molly? Because my guy doesn't have any. Like I was always sort of that version of the drunk. I was never like inspired by what other people were doing. And I think that served me in the sense that in sobriety, seeing other people drinking or taking drugs has never, or smoking cigarettes has never made me want to do the thing. And also, I've always hated dancing, and my kind of music has always been mostly like, old school show tunes or even, 80s pop or disco or whatever, but not the music that was current in the 90s or ever since in my adult life. And so like even in my partying days of taking all those drugs, even taking all those drugs on Fire Island, everybody would be out at the pavilion taking their shirts off on the dance floor. I was back at the house listening to Bette Midler and Diana Ross. Maybe I would like, try to find sex or whatever, but I never wanted to be out at the club. So really my experience being on Fire Island sober has not been any different, and also there are sober communities there. There's. Yeah,
I wanted to ask, like, for sober people, what is the sober community like?
I'm not so much a part of that. I haven't gone to any 12-step meetings on the island ever, but I know that they exist and people get a lot.
I know that there's a thriving community.
Yeah, totally. That's not my life in the city. I have my recovery stuff that I do, but the AA community is not the one that I feel more connected to. I don't go out that much at all in general. Like, I'm out all the time, like seeing shows and seeing cabarets and stuff. But I generally tend to go home, at 11 o'clock. I'm kind of a night person in that I'll stay up late watching TV or reading, or if friends come over, if I'm at friends' houses, I could stay up, all late karaokeing or laughing and talking, whatever. But I don't necessarily need to be like at a loud bar all the time. I do a little more of that on Fire Island just to be in that social world. But I eventually grow tired of it. But also, even in the day, I realized when I went to the Pines party this week, which
Yes,
was
the
my
pi-
first
yeah.
time ever going. And so the Pines party is a circuit party. I mean, I don't know if people all understand what a circuit party is, but it's called a circuit party because there's a circuit of these international destinations, you know, Barcelona,
Puerto
Palm
Vallarta.
Springs, you know.
Puerto Vallarta was the infamous one that took place, COVID notwithstanding.
Yes, exactly.
This year.
And, you know, thousands of guys come from all over the globe, and a lot of them will hit all these parties on the circuit in the course of a year. And they go for 2 nights or 4 nights or whatever it is, because there's events throughout that weekend around the big party, whether it's the white party or the black party or the Pines party or, you know. And, you know, there's a heavy preponderance, is that the right word, of, you know, party drug taking, whether it's Molly or G or Coke or Special K, and, you know, along with everything else that people take. And there certainly have been a lot of overdoses and certainly a lot of sex, which is, you know, a main part of it. And, you know, a lot of people have gone down sort of a dark path with that, although there's certainly lots of people who are, you know, happy, functioning people that's just something that they do. And I guess the Pines party is a little different in that it is on that circuit, but it began as this AIDS benefit in the 80s in the Pines, and it still has a lot of the sort of local involvement that makes it a little more, you know, it's like you could stay at the, I don't know what the right example is. It's like, you know, the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. Like, is it a Four Seasons or is it a Ritz-Carlton? I forget. Maybe it's neither, but let's say it's a Ritz-Carlton. You know, sometimes there's like a hotel that's like, it's actually a Ritz-Carlton, but because it's like a legendary historic hotel, it has a lot more character to it and even just quirks about it. Like, you know, maybe every Four Seasons on the chain has, you know, a mini bar situated like this in every room. But the King David, they don't do that because they already didn't have its grandfathered in, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot about the Pines party that's a little more special and sort of like unique than other circuit parties. I understood that about it. And it's a very big deal. And it's the most, well, desirable in terms of price and availability week or weekend across the whole summer season.
Now, does it take place on the beach?
Yes, it takes place on the beach. And they build these big tents all along this midway and this dance floor and enormous DJ tower right on the beach every year. And a lot of people are obsessed with it. It's a circuit party that a lot of people that are Fire Island Pines guys, but not circuit queens, this is a party that means a lot to them. You know, I've never cared about it. The closest I ever was to anything remotely like that was in my time, you know, really sort of partying hard in San Francisco in the 90s when I was taking a lot of ecstasy and doing a lot of coke. And I would go to these clubs, like there was one called 1015 Folsom, and I would, you know, be out there late at night. But even then, I didn't like being on the dance floor. I would be off in the lounge smoking cigarettes, sitting on a couch, you know? So I've always sort of just been like, yeah, when people talk about the Pines party, you know, I don't care. Plus, it's always been convenient to be one of the people that doesn't care about the Pines party because someone else, when the homeowners and the Pines and the brokers are divvying up the share schedule.
It's a hot week. It's considered like a holiday.
Week.
Yeah.
So it's so wonderful to be like, yeah, no, I'll take Labor Day. And they're like, thank you. And you're like, you're welcome. You know, it's like to not want something other people want is great.
Yeah.
So, but it happened to be that this week, my share week actually ended on the Wednesday before the Pines party, but the person that runs, my friend who runs the house that we're renting from, he has 2 dogs and he had a job out of town over the weekend, and he asked me if I would stay at the house and watch the dogs, which meant I got 4 extra free nights to stay in the Pines. So I was thrilled. And the final night was Saturday night, which was the Pines party night. And as it turned out, staying there, I became connected with these people that are like big machers in the Pines community, and I was invited for free to go to the Pines party. So it was because it's such a big event. It seemed, you know, I would be a fool to pass up the opportunity to experience this. You know, I mean,
so
for these tickets.
Tell us what you saw.
Well, it's really cool. I mean, you know, they build these beautiful tents that look like something out of like a circus in like Morocco or something.
I'm envisioning Burning Man.
Well, I mean, I've never been to Burning Man. It's different. Let me describe it to you. So picture like this stretch of tents back to back touching each other for like, you know, I don't know, 2 city blocks long, let's say, you know, short 2 uptown blocks long, let's say, opposite each other, parallel to the ocean. And in between them is a what they call the Midway, which is just this great flattened sand place you can walk. And some of those tents are corporate tents, like Gay Men's Health Crisis or a gay magazine, different things that are sponsoring the event. And then some of them are the bar tents where you go and you show your wristband and whatever, and you can get your drinks because it's open bar. And then a lot of them, and then some are special for VIPs only. And then some are private tents that people buy just to personally sponsor. So like you could pay however many thousands of dollars, and then your tent can be decorated. I think you choose from a catalog of like which one's in the theme you want. And you have your own bar, and people have to be invited in to have a drink or whatever in your tent. And then at the end of that, after you walk in between all those tents, and everybody's milling about getting from the bar to the dance floor, visiting each other's tents, going to the porta potties or the medical tent on the far end, you know, so it's constantly happening in that Midway. It's like a very sort of active social area, and it's a huge piece of land between all these tents. It's open air and beautiful under the stars. And then on the other end of it is the two huge lighting towers and a great big DJ booth on a huge platform, and then an enormous dance floor with a big stage and more lighting towers at the far end. First of all, the lighting, I saw them practicing the lighting the day and night before. So there's this enormous like circus setup on the beach, and then you see this like laser light show of the highest quality that you would see at a rock concert or whatever, you know, intense. I mean, people on boats must be like, what the fuck is going on Fire Island, you know? And then, of course, when the night actually happens and the sound system is at full blast, it's this intense techno music. I mean, it's very electronic. I mean, I would never have sought that music out, but it really does, like, get inside your bloodstream. I mean, like, it's like this, like, but it's very like it's like so like metallic. I mean, it's like you feel a little bit like any second they could hit a certain tone and we would all like turn counterclockwise and walk into the ocean. Like it's just so hypnotic. And then so every year there's a theme. And so this year was Return to Wonderland, because I guess they've done Alice in Wonderland before. So, you know, everybody's, I'm a slutty Alice, I'm a slutty Queen of Hearts, I'm a Sweetledee and Tweedlecum, you know. It's like, you know, there's all that, you know, and and, you know, they're circuit party guys. So it's all the Fire Island Pines boys at their pinesiest. And then just these fucking guys that go to circuit parties everywhere in the world. You know, so they all have like 12 packs and like crazy biceps and asses like, you know, 2 cantaloupes. And they're all dressed in just like the slivers of fabric, you know, and, you know, so it's very sexy, but very intimidating and intense. And, you know, there's this crazy music and, you know, everybody's drinking, you know, almost everybody's drinking. And so many people are on all kinds of drugs. And there's so much sex going on. I mean, you just see like, you know, in the middle of the Midway, people just like on their knees giving somebody else a blowjob, you know, people just eating each other's asses like in a tent in front of everyone. I mean, it's just like all happening, you know, along with like weird old people that like own like businesses or homes in the Pines, like, you know, just walking around schmoozing with the other people from like the homeowners association. You know, it's such an interesting, strange event.
Wow.
And it goes on until sunrise, and then they have some big talent, usually an opera singer, sing something, you know, the national anthem or something, America the Beautiful, at sunrise, and then it ends, and then there's more parties, and these people go all day and all week. But I guess it got rained out right before sunrise, so that aspect got shut down a little early this year. I tried to make it. I even drank some of those Monster energy drinks, which were diminishing returns. You know, the first one I got was good for an hour. Then I was like really crashing. I had another one that gave me like maybe 20 minutes before I crashed. I was like, I'm going to have a heart attack if I do this. And it's funny, so many of the memories I have of what drugs feel like, I realized it was like, oh, no, that's what 5 a.m. feels like. Like, I don't actually need to be on drugs. The bad part of drugs, a lot of it was actually just the crash of it being 5 a.m.
Exhaustion.
You know, exhaustion. And I was really feeling that. So, you know, I went back home and went to sleep. It was all just like, you know, it's exciting that everybody's like out and like people just have it has a very like kind of New Year's Eve, like, you know, tonight's gonna be a good night. It's like, you know.
And I do want to say this literally just happened. This was like 2 days ago. Yeah. So you are fresh.
Today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
I got back from the Pines Monday night, and yesterday I was like, wow, I am so fucking tired. Like, I was really, and I think I'm finally coming out, although I still even hear it in my voice, just like a sense of just depletion, you know?
What other what performances, like performers, actually, has Luann ever performed?
No, I mean, you know,
I feel like that would so be her audience.
I mean, you know, Luann has been performing for a lot of money in places, and there aren't as many opportunities to get that kind of a price tag.
Because I saw Sandra Bernhard at the Pavilion 2 or 3 years ago.
That Daniel Nardicio produced. But I mean, frankly, Sandra Bernhard has performed for a lot lower quote than Luann has in the last 3 years. You know,
isn't that fucked up?
Well, it's just reality. It's just numbers. I mean, you know, Sandra, I think her audience is growing thanks to Sirius Radio.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, I consider Sandra a landmark artist in a way that Luann could absolutely never approach. But Luann is on a hit TV show that generates a lot of excitement, you know, and that is a different thing. And there's a novelty aspect to it also.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe if Luann's still doing cabaret in 3 or 4 years, she might settle into a more comfortable groove at a Sandra Bernhard level of what she gets, you know, to make it worth her showing up. But, you know, if she's being offering these big figures to play stadiums or, you know, huge performing arts arenas around the country, that's not Sandra's scale, you know. But there have been, Sandra even still is still kind of on the very high end of what you've seen happen. I mean, Daniel Nardicio has produced these events a couple of times, I think maybe most famously when he had Liza Minnelli and Alan Cumming at the Ice Palace. But for the most part, what you see there is performers on a lower tier.
Like I saw Margaret Cho at the Ice Palace.
That's also in the Daniel Nardicio. You know, he's been the exception to the rule, but it's still few and far between. You can say Margaret Cho, you can say Sandra Bernhard. He had, like I said, Liza and Alan. He had, I think, Carol Channing and Justin Vivian Bond. You know, it's still a little bit of like a queer niche. You know, he did not, I believe, have Cyndi Lauper. You know, you have not seen Patti LuPone there. You haven't seen Hart or...
Do we know if Madonna has ever stepped foot?
Oh, well, yeah, for sure she stepped foot. I mean, I'm sure she spent weekends at Calvin's or whoever's in the 70s and 80s. I mean, there was a lot of celebrities that have gone there. But as far as... You know, it's not... First of all, the Fire Island Pines is really not... Most people there are not there to see shows. I had a terribly hard time selling my shows the times that I did them a few years back because it's not... Unlike Provincetown and even to some extent unlike Cherry Grove, people in the Pines don't want to see shows. They want to go there. They want to have dinner with their housemates. Maybe they'll have dinner once in the week at one of the 2 restaurants there, which are the Pines Bistro or the Blue Whale restaurant. Maybe they grab a slice of pizza.
You know what shows they're going to? The drag shows.
Yes. I was going to say the RuPaul's Drag Race stars have changed the game because they have that kind of a following. So if you were going to buy tickets to see Shangela or Ben de la Creme or Bianca Del Rio when you were in Provincetown and it was sold out, you couldn't see Latrice Royale. You couldn't see Jinx Monsoon or, you know, Monet Exchange, you know. Oh, but look, they're there at the Pavilion while we're in the Pines.
Jan Sport played the Pavilion at 6 p.m. I could not believe this. The same night that I was seeing Rose Levine, played at 6 p.m. and no issue getting in. Yeah.
Well, you know, they're still experimenting because even with someone like Jan Sport, who's a star from RuPaul's Drag Race, it's still not in people's minds to see these. I've seen some fabulous performances. I mean, Lady Bunny's show and Shangela's show that I saw at the Pavilion were 2 of the greatest. But it's still not what they're there for. The thing that I've seen the most in the Pines that I've been obsessed with and will talk about till the day I die is Pixia Ventura, local New York queen. And she would do every Monday night at the Ice Palace for years. Now she's Monday nights at the Pavilion in the Pines. And she is just so brilliant. And she's proving that you can really make it and get to the next level as an artist who does drag without RuPaul's Drag Race.
Let's talk about the breakup of men and women between Cherry Grove and the Pines. So initially... Cherry Grove was mostly gay men and like a smattering of women, and it sort of changed over as a result of the AIDS epidemic because the men were dying and the women started making more money at this time and they wound up buying the houses. Isn't that it's sad? It makes sense, but it's It's kind of like a wake-up call in some way.
Yeah, well, it feels like a little bit of how, I mean, in a way, it's a wake-up call that hasn't quite landed yet, because I think that there's, Sarah Schulman has written a lot about this. I mean, her big book that she recently wrote about ACT UP, really talks about, the role of lesbians and how it's like, I think that to some extent lesbians had to sort of be the ugly redheaded stepsister of both the feminist movement in the 60s and 70s and of the gay liberation, because it was run by men, mostly white gay men, in the 70s and stuff, and I think it really bit men in the ass, when they needed those lesbians to take care of them and be there for them and to be a movement with them in the 80s and 90s. And I think part of the story that Sarah's telling in her book is about how important those lesbians were to picking up the slack. And then because even though gay men are queer and second-class citizens, as men, they were still a class higher in terms of earning power than lesbians were. And so the void left by the gay men, I think, that died, opened up opportunities. And I think it's a beautiful thing that Cherry Grove was a pioneering place where the women actually really developed a stronghold, Mm-hmm. And
it's much more mixed. Like
it's much more mixed.
Cherry Grove, I would say the Pines is what, like 99% men?
Yes, although I do see the another good thing though now is that I do see the Pines integrating more. Not
That's
just
where
racially, but I see a lot more women. You see, well, look, we're all able to step outside what the stereotypes were before. I mean, you are a gay woman and you don't fit what was considered a stereotype of that. You're a lipstick lesbian, and not in a way that's confining. You're empowered, but you're also chic and, fashion and.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, you're beautiful. And so you're not somebody that's intimidated by some like bougie white boys in the Pines,
No,
nor should you be, Not that women that hang out in the Grove or like, don't have like, beautiful hair like you do would be intimidated by them, but they might not want to put up with it, whereas you actually like it. You're a Bravo queen, you're into all that stuff. So I think the communities are sort of becoming a little more fluid in a really healthy way, and I think that's true culturally for all of us queer people, as well as we're seeing that in Fire Island. And I think it's even more true for the younger generation that you see like in Bushwick and stuff. And the more that those kids infiltrate Fire Island, the better it will be, even if some of the Altacacas on the water taxi are like, that was amateurish drag.
Literally.
Very amateurish.
You met them too?
Yeah. She had a 5 o'clock shadow. I don't understand.
Fun fact about the Fire Island ferry, Wanda Sykes met her wife on the ferry to Cherry Grove.
I love that. By the way, I always would see Wanda Sykes at the Ice Palace on random Monday nights, and I'm obsessed with her. She's one of the greats.
Can you believe that? How do you fall in love on the ferry? Because as you mentioned before, you're there with your headphones with your Broadway gay ass playlist blasting. How do you strike up
it's just fuck you. My playlist was Bette Midler and Diana Ross and Donna Summer and Ella Fitzgerald. There ain't no Broadway in that. It wasn't like Bette Midler singing Gypsy, okay? I'm talking about like Bette Midler singing like The Beach Boys and like Motown. I hope you will reconsider before you box me into a Broadway only. But your point taken, what actually happened to me this time coming home 2 days ago was my friend Daniel and I were walking alongside the ferry up to where the steps to get on were. And we always like to sit in the exact same seat, which is the front bench on the left on the top deck outside. And we saw our seat was open, but there was a guy sitting behind it. And I was staring at him because I was trying to ascertain if the bench that was in front of him was actually open or if it was behind some different ferries. Sometimes there's a bench that's staff only in front of the regular bench. And he caught me looking and he was sort of cute and we kind of like smiled at each other. So then when we got up there and I sat down on the bench in front of him, I was like, I almost asked you to save my seat, but I didn't think I'd be able to throw my bag high enough for you to catch it. And he laughed. And then Daniel and I went about our merry way having our whatever conversation. And then later on the Long Island Railroad, I go on Grindr, and there was a message from that guy. And we are now engaged and in love. No.
Are you going to go out?
I don't know. I wrote him back. I think it fell off. I haven't checked Grindr all day because I was being productive today, ending my 2 weeks of being a sexting black hole of function.
Let's talk about the invasion.
Yes.
Strangely enough, the very first time I was ever on Fire Island, certainly I didn't know it was the invasion. It was just July 4th weekend. I have been, if I go back to my, it's like albums on Facebook, literally it's the invasion. It's crazy. My very first time there. And so I've been like so many times because I have a lot of friends whose birthdays are around July 4th.
Yeah.
And so it just winds up being a thing. Do you know the history of the invasion?
Yes. I mean, and I have been once, but not like you.
As we were saying, the Pines was sort of uppity and Upper East Side, and Cherry Grove was very drag was happening.
Using uppity correctly, because I've noticed the ladies on Housewives will say uppity when what they really mean is like perky or energetic. And unfortunately, sometimes they use it in a way that could be actually misconstrued as racist. And trust, I'm the first one, as you know, we were talking before the show started, to say that they are, in fact, many of them white supremacists.
Yeah, guys, you missed the whole breakdown about Ebony,
But when the Housewives say uppity, they really don't mean what we all know the word actually means, which is like snobby and like elitist. She's like, we'll edit that out.
So, as the story goes, this queen was described as sort of somebody who would probably today be considered trans or would eventually transition. So this person who...
A lot of those queens in those days, I think, probably would fall under that.
You think?
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? This queen took a water taxi over to the Pines, to the Blue Whale, and was denied service for dinner.
There was I think the law was you had to be wearing clothing appropriate to your gender.
Oh, really?
And the way that they did the sit-ins at the gay bars in the movie Stonewall prior to the actual riot or anything was they would just go to gay bars where they were all drinking all the time, but they would say to the bartender, I am a homosexual and I would like a glass of beer. And they would say, the New York State, blah, 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 forbids us from serving alcohol to homosexuals. And similarly, you were forbidden from serving alcohol to transvestites. And that's what part of what was a haven about Cherry Grove is that they could just do that. And I don't think it was that the laws didn't apply. It's just that they had different deals with the mafia where they didn't enforce it or whatever. Or maybe once in a while there were raids, but the owners didn't change the policy.
Right. So this queen goes back on the water taxi to Cherry Grove, tells all of her friends what happened. And a famous drag performer who is still around, this performer Pansy, I forget his actual real name, but he goes by the drag name Pansy. He's, these guys are now in their like
Harry Dubin, that's his real
name. So Pansy's like, we're not going to stand for this. He goes, so like he gathers a group of probably 5 to 10 people. They all go in drag. They all get on a small water taxi and they quote unquote invade the Pines. And they're like, we will not accept being refused service at the Blue Whale. And they came, they were allowed to enter. All the people there got a kick out of what they were doing and they went home and that was it. And then this was, I believe, like July 1976.
I mean, isn't it incredible that it was that late? Like, wouldn't you have guessed that was like July 1970 or like 72?
Yeah. Because this has been going on since the 50s. Yeah. It took 20 years for this to happen.
The Pines, by 76, this was a gay haven already at this point.
It's this rivalry.
Amazing how much it but was still buttoned up,
Mm-hmm. Internalized homophobia.
Yeah, literally.
And the very next year, in 1977, they did it again. And then maybe there were like 15 or 20 people who did it. And every year, it grew and grew and grew. And now thousands of queens board multiple ferries. Whole ferries. And they, quote unquote, invade the Pines. And it's a huge celebration.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. And queens come from, I think they must come from all over the world to take part in this.
Yeah. So the July 4th week is built all around the invasion as the big event.
Yeah.
And they'll have different celebrities. The year that I was there for it, Shangela was the grand marshal of the invasion, and she did her shows at the pavilion that week, and they had other stars too. And it's all...
I know Bianca Del Rio.
It's all a party. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other just final thoughts, like favorite memories from from all your years out there?
So many.
I mean, clearly, it seems like the Pines party was the highlight of this year for you.
No,
of this
well,
season.
there was this fabulous weekend, but you know what? I still have 2 more. I have more than 2 weeks because I have 2 weeks in my share house at the Pines, the August 11th to 18th, and then again 27th to September 3rd, and then I'm staying an extra week basically after that to be there for Labor Day weekend to do the Jerry's Girls show. But I mean, really, I treasure the Pines so much. I mean, I just love, I lay on the beach all day long. But, you know, when I go to the Grove, and I go to the Grove for dinner or a show or whatever, at least once a week, usually 2 or 3 times.
Favorite restaurant in the Grove?
Well, we love to eat at Sandcastles because it's on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, food-wise in the Grove, I actually like to go to Cherry's and just get, like, you know, fried crap, you know. I mean, there's really no great food in the Pines except what you cook, you know. But what I love to do to go to the Grove is I walk on the beach. I don't take the water taxi, and I don't go through the meat rack. To me, the meat rack is just like walking through mud. I fucking hate that. But walking along the beach, along the ocean, I think about Jerry Herman there writing La Cage aux Folles, and I sing on the walk home if I'm by myself, you know. And I just love that. I have my process of I bring my extra bag over my shoulder. I put my flip-flops in it. I bring 17 bottles of water, but I love it.
Didn't Truman Capote write Breakfast at Tiffany's on Fire Island?
I think so. I mean, lots of Tennessee Williams. I mean, there have been so many greats, you know, and of course all the people, the glam 70s Calvin Klein and Tommy Tune and all that. Maybe my craziest Fire Island memory is I was doing my show Patty Issues there in 2013, and I'd been booked for a few weeks at a time, 1 week at a time to go and do it. And they would give me the hotel room free for like, I was doing the show on Friday night and they'd give me the hotel room like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night or something. And then I would always try to ask them for an extra night. And then if they wouldn't get it, I would try to find some other place to stay. Cause of course I never wanted to go home. And this one time I was there and it was during July and it was really crazy. And they didn't have any extra rooms available at all to give me. And I had these friends who were staying with friends of theirs who had like a mansion with just all these guest rooms like lined up empty along the pool in their beautiful backyard. And I'd been hanging out with them, having lunch by the pool all day long. And I knew I'd charmed the pants off them. And we were all going out that night. And I was like, I'm sure I'll be able to get an invitation. Then they slept in and decided to skip dinner and would see us later at the pavilion dancing. So I was like, oh God, I have to go dancing. But I still didn't have a place to stay that night. And I was asking my friend, can you just ask them? We just text them back and ask if it's okay if I stay over. He was like, you can't put me in that position. If they come out dancing, you'll make the conversation. I was like, well, and I let the last ferry go, waiting for them to come out dancing.
Last ferry.
And they didn't come out dancing. And I was like, well, you know what? Listen, come on, Two Shoes. I was like, get on that dance floor, get on Grindr. You got to find somebody to sleep with tonight, you know? I was like, look, I might not always be able to find the guy that I would like to sleep with, but I'm sure I can find someone. So I'm out on the dance floor. I'm on Grindr. Nothing. I'm so exhausted. I was sober already. It's fucking 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, God, I just want to go to bed. I don't have a bed. I'm on Grindr. Like, I just cannot get laid to save my life. Lowering my standards. Nobody. Now I'm sitting on the bench in the harbor, just like cruising guys on the walk. Nobody wants me. And I'm just like, oh my God, am I going to sleep on the beach? Is that even legal? Finally, this guy on Grindr, this like gorgeous, like silver fox, flirting with me. Why don't you come over? I go to his house. It's this beautiful house on the bay with this fabulous back deck. We get in the pool. It was very warm. It was a heated pool and it was the middle of the summer. We're hooking up in the pool. We wound up like having sex on this like lounge chair. It's like magical. We're like lying there. He's asking me what I do about my show. Oh my God. He was at this private fabulous dinner party, his friend's 50th, and they'd hired Patti LuPone to sing, and she sang Over the Rainbow. I'm like, she never sang Over the Rainbow. He's like, here, it's on my phone. He like texts me this video of Patti singing Over the Rainbow. I'm like, this is my gay Nirvana. I'm like, God, isn't it funny how things all work out? He's like, well, listen, I really wish I could invite you to stay, but this housemate's blah, 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 blah. I have to ask you to leave. What? I can't believe it. I go back out. I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm so fucking tired now. I'm truly going to die. And so I go back to the house, my friend's house, where we were all hanging out all day. And I just like try the front gate. It's unlocked. I go out by the pool, sliding door into one of the guest rooms. No one's in there. I sleep on top of the blankets. I set my alarm. I wake up early. I wipe down the basin where I washed my face, and I sneak out, and no one knows until this minute.
For 1 minute there, I did think the punchline of this story was that silver fox.
Yeah.
Was Andy Cohen.
Ah! I don't think Andy Cohen needs to sleep with my tired ass, but that's very kind.
Have you ever seen him there? Because he goes for 2 weeks every
this
summer.
was funny too. This is a couple years ago, before I had even started working with Luanne. I think it might even be before I worked for Teresa. But I had been on Watch What Happens Live as a bartender when Patti LuPone was the guest, for her first time being a guest, when I was doing Patti Issues. And at that time, John Hill was still living in New York, and John and I are very good friends, and Andy knew who I was, I hoped. And I saw Andy walking down the beach with Waka, and I was like, come on, Ben, don't be insecure. Like, you remind him who you are, but you just go say hello, because maybe next time he will remember, So I'm like, Andy. And I go like running up to him, jiggling all over. And, of course, Andy's like in flawless shape. And I'm like, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Ben Rimalower. I was a bartender on the show, and I'm John Hill's friend. He goes, yeah, the Patti LuPone show. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy you remember. How are you? He's like, good. How you been? Blah, blah, blah. We're chatting. He's like, well, I'll see you at tea later. Okay, buddy? I was like, okay, great to see you. I go back down to my blanket feeling, who are we kidding? To my chair, feeling, pretty cool as my friends see me like returning. I'm like, yeah, just like good friends, And then as I'm watching Andy go further and further down the beach, every couple of towels, you see some queen go, Andy, and get up and have their moment. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so lame.
You're the best. Every time we do a thing together, my stomach always hurts from laughing. I think you're the best storyteller.
I love you. My throat hurts from talking. I need to, no Pines party for me next summer.
No Pines party, next recording.
Pines party, yeah.
So remind people, I guess, where they can follow you, your 2 shows, which they can listen to, download on iTunes.
Yes.
And the shows, your live performance in P-Town.
Well, they can follow me on all socials. I'm just at Ben Rimalower. And every week on Tuesdays, my live stream is on the Broadway World Facebook page or on the Broadway Podcast Network YouTube page. It's called Next Year, Some Year. And then the live shows that we have are, Daniel and I will be doing our live podcast at the Art House in P-Town on August 24th. And I have my show Dead on Arrival with John Hill, Art House in Provincetown, August 25th. And then Labor Day weekend, it hasn't even been announced yet. I'm breaking news here. I will be doing a guest spot in the Fire Island Pines Arts Association's production of Jerry's Girls.
And give everybody your share dates for the next couple of weeks.
And you can find me maybe at the underwear party again. I will be back in Fire Island August 11th to 18th. Say hi. Then I will be in Provincetown the whole week, August 20th to August 27th. So come up to me on Commercial Street. And then I'll be in Fire Island from August 27th to September 7th. So see me there, not in the meat rack. I will say that I thought after doing Real Housewives that I would get recognized more in Fire Island. It's only happened 1 or 2 times. But a guy that came up to me at tea a couple weeks ago did say, hey, aren't you Ben? You work with Countess Luann? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, me and my friends loved it when you said to Sonia that you couldn't go to her event because you had your Fire Island housemates reunion, wintertime reunion. I was like, well, that's real.
We just brought it all full circle right here. By the way, one final thought. I can't believe I didn't bring this up earlier. Have you ever seen the deleted Roni scene where Bethany goes to Fire Island?
Yes.
Iconic.
Love.
Like, she's just like, they're gay and they're fabulous. She goes, I've never seen these gay guys. It's ridiculous. It's very 2009.
It is very that. Well, one of my happiest moments on Fire Island was 2010. I was trying to get over a broken heart, and my friend Jeffrey said, let's go to Fire Island. We'll just find some shitty extra bed somewhere to stay in. We'll just go for the night because we were so broke. But we wound up, it was my last year there on drugs. We wound up taking ecstasy and hanging out on the roof all night. But I remember like the peak of my experience was when Jeffrey told me that he saw me as like a gay Bethany Frankel. And I remember just like looking at the waves on the ocean as the ecstasy rolled in my brain, just being like, yeah, that's who I am. I'm Bethany Frankel.
You can follow me, Jess XNYC. Follow Ben Rimalower. You're the best. Benny, baby.
Yeah.
We love you.
Happy birthday.